Good morning, everybody. My name is Maurice Button. I'm the CEO of City and Financial Global, and it's my great pleasure to be interviewing Mardi and McBrien. Mardi, welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Maurice, for the invitation.
Our pleasure. So let's get into the questions, if we may. Firstly, by way of background, please can you tell us a little about your role at the IFRS and the current focus of the IFRS on sustainability issues?
Sure. So the role of strategic affairs is really about how we manage the sort of key relationships that we need to globally to advance the adoption of sustainability standards. And I guess my role over the last 12 months here, almost a year to the day, we merged in the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, where I was formerly the managing director. So we've spent the last year building the International Sustainability Standards Board here at the IFRS Foundation, a sister to the International Accounting Standards Board. So two great global bodies now all under the one roof, moving standard setting forward in a consistent, comparable and decision useful way. And so my role is really to make sure we get the support and endorsements to progress those standards globally for both boards.
Very good. And I know that the IFRS has published draft standards, the one on there's a general one, isn't there? And there's a further standard as well. What's the focus? What's the sort of the feedback been from industry, from companies and other stakeholders to these two draft standards?
Firstly, it's been overwhelmingly supportive. I don't think we could have ever expected in our wildest dreams to receive 1,400 feedback letters last year, and the board and the staff have been very busy deliberating on those, and hopefully we'll have the standards out by the end of Q1 this year. So we're on track, and that's very exciting. There's been some challenges we've worked through, and many of you will have watched the broadcast board meetings and followed the minutes and the papers and the discussion. But we are moving forward. We are moving forward at pace. And just last week, and the board meeting this week, they're sort of laying out the agenda for the 12 months ahead, looking at the nexus around water and biodiversity, as well as sort of human capital issues as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So a very, very strong level of support, which is pretty much what I think most people would expect to put an end to the sort of alphabet soup of all the different standards that people.
Well, that's exactly it. It is hopefully going to harmonise that for investor-focused reporting to capital markets, connected into financial information. And we've been lucky enough to receive support from the G7, the G20, the African finance ministers. So it's been really amazing, and we are starting to see around the world now different governments and bodies working out how they're bringing these standards in and putting the laws in place and the infrastructure in place to endorse the standards and bring them into legal requirement within jurisdictions, with an effective date, sort of a few years down the track. So this is really starting to move fast on a global basis.
Fantastic. And could you please just describe for us the linkage between the draft standards and the transition plans, which obviously the focus of this upcoming conference, and also
Sure.
the linkage to TCFD and potentially further down the road TNFD disclosures?
Certainly. So our standards, I mean, if we think about this from a UK perspective and a UK transition plan task force, it actually goes the work of the drafts that we're currently sandboxing and testing from the transition plan task force go further than what we go in our standards. So our standards are supposed to set a global baseline that everyone can do. And in the UK government requires additional information, and so that is layered on top of it. So they're hugely complementary, and the ISSB is working closely with the transition plan task force to make sure that that's completely aligned, and for a company there's not duplication of effort, etc. And there, so we're working very closely there. The connection with TCFD is that these standards, when we brought together the alphabet soup, if you like, we brought together the TCFD standards, the CDSB standards, SASB, IRC, and IASB standards, the best of all of it, if you like, and mixed it together and developed these standards. So the TCFD 4 core elements or pillars, if you like, of strategy, governance, risk management, targets, and metrics still form the same 4 pillars of our standards, and that will cut across all issues going forward. So if you're already doing TCFD as a reporting entity, you don't have to do much further to be able to comply with the climate standard. And if you think about that same structure for other issues, then you'll be well prepared to address them as further standards come out down the line. And you
Right
also
on.
mentioned TNFD, so I feel I have to say something on that. So at the Biodiversity COP in Montreal late last year, we were very supportive of the TNFD and said we will be considering their work when we expand into that space later this year. And obviously, we're not looking to duplicate effort. The TNFD was built heavily from the work of the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, which we already have here at the IFRS Foundation. So there is already a lot of parallels and similarities, and bodies of knowledge and expertise in place to make sure that we don't, increase reporting burden for preparers.
Great. So all joined up.
Yeah.
What do you see as the greatest challenges to making transition plans an effective tool?
I think one of the things that we have going for them is that they are mandatory, and they will be, we're already starting to see signatures towards enforcement of them as well. So I think the mandatory piece straight away is really powerful, because we've had a long time of voluntary forms of all sorts of climate reporting, and that didn't really work, let's be honest. And so I think that in the UK, the fact that it's mandatory from the beginning, I think will make sure that they stick, but also mean that people put the right sort of effort and resources into them from the beginning, and sort of instead of it being a comms function in the back office that used to be the early days of sustainability and climate reporting, it will be given the right sort of attention, prominence, and resources so that it can be reported, they can be done well.
Yeah. Okay, finally, Mardi, what would be your central message to banks, asset managers, insurers, and companies as we start 2023 in terms of their focus on all things sustainable?
I would say get behind the effort of the ISSB, the TPT, all of those that are trying to centralise and bring these issues together in a consistent way. Get behind them, not just doing them yourselves, but request those that you invest in, that you talk to do it as well. We really need to push this effort if we are going to get that consistent, comparable data set and actually drive the action that we hope these standards will internally within businesses as well. So, get behind the effort and just get started if you're not already with TCFD, and then, follow closely the work of the standards and the TPT later this year.
Great. A nice positive message to leave this interview on. Mardi, it's a great pleasure to speak to you. We look forward to hearing more of what you have to say at the Climate Transition Plans for Financial Institutions and Listed Companies Summit in central London on the 7th of February. I very much hope that the people listening to this and watching this will be able to join us at the event in person. So it just remains for me to say, Mardi, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you on the 7th of February.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.